So that's a 1962 or 1963 Lionel New Haven 232. Pretty much at the bottom of the price list. Very, very lightweight little engine, has magnet traction. You think it can pull 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 cars up this hill. What do you think? It's got magnet traction. It doesn't weigh much. Let's see. That's pretty impressive, huh? What do you think? You think you can start it on the hill? Let's get halfway up the hill. All right. Look at that. Either that's the little engine that could, or there's a little more to the story. I think we're going to go back and review what's really going on here. I think you might find it interesting. So this will be a video about Lionel Alcos, and we're going to cover a couple things. One, unlike the rest of the model railroad world, we're not going to worry about road names and what years specific road names came out and stuff like that. The only thing I'm going to worry about is the basic architecture of the locomotive in the three eras, 1950s, 1960s, and then post 1969 is all we're going to deal with in this little video. And we've got one of each in here. You've got MPC, you've got 1950s diecast, and then you've got the little engine that could, magnet traction, lightweight New Haven 232. And then I think I will proceed from there. But that's quite the load for a little guy, isn't it? What we have here is 3 generations of Alcos in one picture. You have the old 1950s era die-cast frame, quite heavy Alcos, and you can see the components are all die-cast metal, and the frame is a die casting as well. And these were actually very, very cool models of the time. Or the battery holder for the whistle, and just a very, very heavy built model. And Lionel quit making them like this. I don't know. I'll let the experts define exactly when. But sometime in the late 50s, they went to something called a sheet metal frame. And that's what this is. This is an early 1960s era Alco, and instead of having a die-cast frame and die-cast trucks, it has a stamped sheet metal frame and plastic injection molded side plates for the trucks. And then when Lionel actually went down and got bought out by a food company, they continued making Alcos, and it looked like they used almost the same mold for the plastic body. Very much the same. For that matter, it's really hard to tell the difference at all between them, if there is any difference at all. And these were the NPCs, and if you look, it has a different motorized truck yet again. Let's see if I can line them up so you can see them. So this is the 1950s era, and there's the powered truck right there. You can see the gears, and again the die-cast chassis and spot for a battery for the whistle. Interestingly enough, the pickups are in the back of the locomotive and the motor's in the front on this one. This is the 1960s era, and again it's got plastic injection molded bits and pieces and a lot of sheet metal frame, you know, stampings here as well. But I kind of get a kick of this here. Look at the size of the axle and the bushings. So that's the magna traction powered truck right there, but it's actually fairly heavy built. You know, you can forgive the plastic. And then this is the NPC stuff. And isn't a whole lot of crossover there. Instead of having the magna traction, these things right here have got those rubber bands that surround the wheel. Here's another NPC. On the NPCs, they have a die-cast side plate on the powered trucks, whereas the 1960s eras here, they didn't. It's just plastic. Of course, this was all die-cast in the 50s. It's actually a pretty heavy unit. Works good. You know, they drive well. Of course, you got to get used to the fact that this is die-cast and this is plastic. But the other thing that came along with the NPCs were these B units. And got a couple of those. And I'm not going to get into the road names and the years and all that. What I'm more interested in is the basic architecture of the locomotive. You know, die-cast sheet metal with the magna traction, sheet metal with the rubber traction. Those are the three eras from my perspective. And you can go to the true enthusiasts who will give you chapter and verse on what road names happened and when and all that kind of stuff. One thing I can tell you, this thing here weighs like a couple of pounds. It's quite heavy. Very, very nice model. This thing here weighs half as much. Just doesn't have a lot of weight in there at all. It relies heavily on the magna traction in order to get something to move. And these, they're a little heavier. If you look inside these, there's weights they've got in there. They've bolted into the frame. Look right there to the right hand side. You see that metal weight they've bolted into this one. So again, I suspect that they tweaked the design over time. This one does not have that weight. Has the same powered truck, but it doesn't have a weight on the inside. Well, I guess you can call that 4 subsets, right? As they evolve the NPCs into something a little more sophisticated. This right here runs good. Pulls about 10 cars. This one doesn't quite pull 10. It tries. I use it for additional power. This guy right here, even though it doesn't weigh very much, it pulls as much as any of them. It's just kind of funny. But anyway, figured that'd be interesting. Here's a couple of magna traction powered trucks. You can look right on the inside. I got another one MPC era. And you can see that it's got those rubber traction, rubber bands on the tires on the left-hand side by the gears. Die-cast 1950s. These die-cast plates are held on with one screw. A point of interest. There's your 1950s era motor. See that kind of a screw gear right there? Drops down into the truck right here, the die-cast truck. And you can see where it turns on that gear. And then of course, it turns this set of wheels, which is geared to the other set. Look at that. All in a big, strong die-cast housing. That thing is heavy and it's beefy. Here is the 1960s version, where motor sits up here on top, drives right down the middle, drives in the middle, still drives both front and rear. Reason why it's got those big thick axles is because this is the magnetraction version. They're magnetized and they stick right to the track. So I think that's pretty cool. Now the unit toggle for this one is right there, kind of underneath the locomotive as compared to the newer ones which sit on top. So there's another difference between the early 1950s version and the 1960s. Now the dummies that went alongside these Alcos were interesting as well. This is the 1950s era die-cast. And notice it's got pickups and all that for accessories. And they came with a variety of different accessories, some lighted, some not. You know, there's just a bunch of stuff that they would add on there for extra dollars. And of course these MPC era plastic ones are just, they might as well just be a train car. Really not much to them. Same with the dummy A's. There's just nothing to them. Now some of them have, you know, pickups and lights and stuff like that, a little higher up the food chain on the product list, but for the most part they're pretty simplistic, just dummies. So let's put them all on the track. I'm kind of curious one thing. I'm put all three era on the track and see how they run relative to each other. Well, looks like that old girl there, 60-something years old, caught up to the rest of them. So the next question I have is which one can pull the most cars up this hill? Because it is a hill. So what I'll do is just take each one and load them up until they can't take any more, and the one that pulls the most cars wins the race. How's that? But as far as the way they're geared and things like that, they run close enough together where you can stack them together if you want in a train. You know, they're not going to derail the cars if you have them mid-train or something like that. I've been doing the redneck DPU thing where I stick a locomotive somewhere mid-train to get up this hill, so the short track like this with a tight radiuses, it doesn't pull the cars, fold them in, you know, take them off the track. So which one do you think is going to pull the most cars? All right, I'm going to start out with 5 cars. I think they're watching from the inside of that house. One, two, three, four, five, 6. 5 cars in a caboose. Can it get up the hill? That's 14 volts. Alright, see if we can start on the hill. Struggling, but it's doing it. There it goes. Alright, let's put on another couple of cars. Alright, can I get 7 cars up the hill? 14 volts. Nope, I'll give it a little help. Just a little help. So that's a little bit too much. Let's take 1 car off. So I'm going to take this 1 car, same car, and use it in the next locomotive. Just put the caboose up. So we're going to go 1 car less and see if that gives it the edge it needs. Give a little bit of help. So it can't pull 6 cars either. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, actually it's 7 cars. So it pulled 5 cars easily. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It struggled with. Let's go to 6 cars. 5 cars in a caboose. Okay, that's its limit. You can't handle any more than that. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars. Let's go to the 1960s era. Magnet traction. It's physically the lightest of these little locomotives by far, actually. Doesn't weigh hardly a thing as compared. See if I can pull those 6 cars up. No problem. Let's see if it can do one more. So this will be one more car than the 1950s era diecast could do, if it does it. He's working. There he goes, look at that. Little engine that could. See if we can do one more car. I think that'll be about the limit. One more. That's its limit. Give a little bit of help. So it can't pull that. It can pull 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but it can't pull the 8th car. So, but it can pull a little more than the 1950s version, right? Even though it weighs less. Let's try the new MPC. So right now, the lightest locomotive with the least amount of options, probably the lowest in the price list, can pull the most cars to this point in time. Let's try newest MPC. This one right here. This was like from the late 80s, early 90s. It pulls it with no problem, none. So let's see if we can add a couple more cars and find out what the limit of the new MPC is, because obviously we have a steady growth of capability as we get newer and newer. I'm actually impressed. I had no idea that an MPC, one of the least desired versions of Lionel, would outpull them all. But there you go. try one more. No problem. It went right up the hill. Let's see if it'll pull 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 cars. That's impressive. So we're not going to go any further, but that thing outpulls all of them by quite a margin. So, well, these might be really cool. You know, the die cast and the model and all that. The fact of the matter is the newer MPCs will outpull all of them, including the 1960s era Lionel. How do you like that? Doesn't even have magnet traction. Now, the problem I've been having is when I get over 10 cars, like just what happened here, is the couplers have a hard time on the cars themselves. So I take the wimpiest of the MPCs and I stick it somewhere mid-train, and that seems to be a solution. Let me push these cars down. But that locomotive doesn't need the help. It's just the cars. Their couplers aren't rugged enough to handle this. So I'll go back like maybe right in here somewhere, and I'll stick another locomotive. Trust me, this one won't pull anywhere near as good as any of the other ones we tried. But stick that thing mid-train and it really helps. No problem. I can start right on the hill and everything. Start adding cars. It's all the cars I have out right now. So let's see whether or not the newest MPC Alco plus the second newest with the same basic drive unit, just one has more weight than the other, can pull this up the hill. No problem.